Thank you for the introduction. As Matthias mentioned, I'm coming from Tel Aviv today. I currently work in e-commerce fraud, but last summer I had the honor of working with RStudio as an intern in developing data science puzzles. And so today I'll be talking a little bit about that experience and kind of the mindset and kind of the flow of building these puzzles. And also here, this bit.ly links goes to a GitHub repository with a link to these slides and a few other materials. And so this whole story actually starts over a year and a half ago. It was December. I had a big writing project to finish. And so as with all writing projects, at least for me, I found some very interesting distraction, which was the admin of code. The admin of code, as the name implies, is a series of puzzles from December 1st to the December 25th, one per day. And you have people who stay up till midnight waiting for the new puzzle to come out and try to rush out an answer. For me, it was more low-key. I used my language of choice, R, to solve all these puzzles. And this is kind of what it looks like to give you an idea. You log onto the web page, you have some text telling you that there's some crazy problem you have to solve. The robots or machines or whatever really need your help. It describes what you need to do. It often has to do with hashing or recursion or some other computer science concept. And then you have your unique puzzle input. This brings you to another page with some garbled text or some numbers or whatever it may be. And then you have to submit your answer following the guidelines they've provided in the text. And so all of this I did in R, but I found myself using R in very unintuitive, unnatural ways. These are computer science problems I was trying to solve. These are not data problems. And little did I know at the time, but Jenny Bryan from RStudio was also working through these problems, but she took that feeling one step further. She thought, these puzzles are a lot of fun, but what if we made puzzles that highlighted what R and the tidyverse are actually good at? That is working with data. And so that is how this project was born, the Ides of March project, as we call it now. And it evolved to be a series of bite-sized puzzles that focus on core data science skills as championed by the tidyverse set of packages. And I think what Julie said in the keynote today, like the definition of data science that she proposed was very accurate. We're talking about data science as a way of turning raw data into some insights, and we're not talking about machine learning and AI and those kind of terms. And just a note also, these puzzles are unfortunately still not released, but the RStudio education team is taking it on, and hopefully in the next few months, there will be a one-day trial of these puzzles, and Mina will have more information if you're interested. And just a quick note for the name, for those of you not very familiar with Shakespeare, it comes from, Ides of March, or Beware the Ides of March, comes from the tragedy of Julius Caesar. You have the soothsayer or fortune teller coming up to Caesar saying, beware the Ides of March, beware the 15th of March. Caesar kind of brushes him off. He's like, okay, there's this weird dude telling me something, warning me about something. And of course, come 15th of March, Caesar is assassinated. And so the moral of the story is that if your data is trying to tell you something, heed the warnings, and that way you can avert tragedy, unlike in Caesar's case. So for this project, we had a number of different goals. We wanted to engage the community, engage the current community, and also bring new people into the community to participate. We wanted to create a bank of solutions for these discrete data puzzles, or discrete data problems. Like in order to reshape a data file, you can use the tidyverse, you can use base R, you can use Python, you can use whatever you want. Even within the tidyverse, there are several solutions. And so we envision getting a bank of solutions to these problems. But we also focused on discrete concepts that we wanted to teach people. We wanted to focus on the wrangling skills as championed by these packages. And at least for me, when I learn R or data science, I find myself doing this kind of random walk, encountering problems and learning skills as I go. But that sometimes means that there are some very simple areas that are adjacent to what I know that I never encounter because I just haven't seen it yet. And so that was one thing that we wanted to do, go through all of the different packages, try to kind of surface some of these lesser known functions so that even if you're an advanced user, you can still learn something new, still learn some like shortcuts that you may not have known before. And the other part of what we wanted to model for people is are these best practices for workflows. Data science is not just the code, right? It's not just the code, it's not just the data. It's also about how you do it, how you organize your code, how you're able to use version control or projects to share the code with other people. And so in order to do this, I first started off prototyping a web-based experience. So basically the same as with the admin of code, I prototyped something where you would go onto a website, it would give you the problem, it would give you the data set you have to work on, and then you can now go off to whatever platform you want, whether it's RStudio or Python or pen and paper, and you can solve those puzzles and submit that answer. But in order to focus on the workflow, I also prototyped an R-mediated experience. This is a more opinionated, guided experience of how you might solve these puzzles. And this is largely inspired by the useThis package, which primarily focuses on package workflows, but really emphasizes that all these pointy, clicky steps, all these setup steps that you do many, many times, don't have to stay that way. You can automate it with code. And so this is kind of how it looks. You load the Ides of March package. You want to start, you say initialize puzzles, you give it some information about yourself, and then it creates a new project for you and populates it with a few files and folders. And so if we zoom in on that, we can take a closer look. So first, we're using a project so that you can easily share things with other people, so that you can share things with yourself on another computer, and keep everything contained. Here we also have a .puzzle file, which stores some extra information about you, just like a .git file does. We also have a puzzles folder. It gives you that first puzzle in a folder by itself. And you can imagine as you continue through the challenges, you end up with more and more puzzles. And then we also have a README file, which looks like this. Because if you follow the structure we recommend, if you don't play around and get too creative, then we can do some cool things. Here, I have this automatically generated table of contents. With just one puzzle, it doesn't look very impressive, but you can imagine when you have 25 or 30 puzzles in your folder, having something that automatically knows where everything is, links to them directly, is very, very handy and doesn't require that much work once you have the initial organization set up. If we look within that puzzle folder, we also see a few other files. We see a data file. If you were to go into the web interface, there would be a button to download it, and you'd have to save it yourself. Here, it's saved for you. You have a solution template file, so that's where you can start coding up whatever your way of solving it. And then there is a text file that has that puzzle text telling you what the problem is. And here we are following some key principles for naming files. And Jenny has a great talk on how to name things that I would recommend. And basically, we want this to be both machine and human readable. Here, with the way it's named, it's very easy to select all data files from all puzzles. It's very easy to select just the files from this first puzzle. And it also plays very well with default ordering. Once I have over 10 files, I'm not going to just have things going out of order because 10 starts with 1, 0, and it jumps up to the top. Within the solution.r file, so I'm just digging one level deeper, we also try to incorporate a few little hints that people might not be familiar with. There's a hashtag apostrophe that allows you to include comments that get rendered into an HTML file. So this is the same thing as R Markdown, but for more code-heavy documents. This might be a little bit easier sometimes. I've omitted the tidyverse messages here to keep the HTML output a little bit cleaner. And then at the bottom here, I've used the here package to make sure that the paths work both in the console and when rendered, especially since this file is nested deep within the project. And so before we leave today, I just wanted to show one quick example of what a puzzle might look like. For example, you might have a sandwich shop that makes really, really good sandwiches, BLTs, fluffernutters, which are apparently peanut butter and marshmallows combined in a sandwich. It sounds very American. And since many of these specialty ingredients keep going bad, they decided to cut the selection and focus just on their best-selling sandwich. And that's the problem you're here to help them solve. They're very, very good store owners. They've collected the data for you and organized it very nicely. And here's a sample of the data. You have customer names, you have the sandwiches. Here it's semicolon separated. And these sandwiches are their favorites in no particular order. And here at the bottom it says that in this sample of 6 customers, the Dagwood sandwich is the most popular. And just by eyeballing it, we can see that Adam, Alexa, and Anna all really like the Dagwood sandwich. And in the full data set, what is the most popular sandwich among the customers? So this section in the middle here I've included purposefully. This idea of a test case was also something really emphasized in the advent of code. It's the idea of simplifying your problem, whether it's a data set or a bug or something else, some other kind of problem. If you simplify what you're trying to solve and are able to solve the simple version, it means that you're already almost, a good portion of the way to your final solution without having to get into the weeds right off the bat. And so here is the same small table you saw before, now in a more Tibble format. I've called it SW for sandwiches. And so what would you do first if you want to find the most popular sandwich? It seems to me that these sandwiches, it's kind of annoying actually that they're all in one line. So let's separate it out into separate rows. You might want to use string split to separate it out by semicolons, and unnest it perhaps, but thankfully there's also a handy function that does that for you. Separate rows, you give it the column name, you give it the separator, semicolon space, and then it gives you a long format of the same data. And then now you can just do a count. And as we expected, Dagwood pops up to the top, and now we can use the same code on that full data set. And so once you've finished with a puzzle, in this R-mediated experience, you can now submit it. If you get the answer wrong, it will make a call to the API, tell you you're wrong, or to try again. And then if you give it the right answer, it tells you you're correct, but also runs that solution file for you. And that's another concept we're trying to emphasize here. Having code that is fully runnable, fully self-contained, includes all the library calls, can be run in order. That's something that's very important when you want to share code with other people. And so to conclude, we wanted to focus a lot on various things that can be accomplished with the tidyverse and to surface some of the lesser-known functions. But there was a lot more to the puzzles than just the tidyverse, than just wrangling. We wanted to talk about a lot of the concepts around data analysis that sometimes don't get enough attention. How you name your files, using test cases, using self-contained code and projects and version control. They're all very important and all belong to data analysis. Thank you very much. I'd be happy for any questions. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Irene. Any questions? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Any idea when they'll be available? I've been looking and looking and looking for 6 months.
I'm sorry. It seems like hopefully in the next few months we'll have a one-day release. Mina is really the point person for that question. There's some technical challenges. They're working on deploying this to Shiny, and so they're working on how to make that work at scale.
I really like the idea. It's really fantastic. Is there going to be kind of a yearly, I guess, contest every like Advent of Code with these?
I think that would be the goal. We don't know how it's going to work yet. I guess the future will tell. But I think, it would be amazing if once we get these puzzles off the ground, we could do these yearly. We could get contributions from the community every year and continue to run these puzzles. But we'll see.
I don't see any more questions. Let's thank the speaker again.
Thank you.